Most people think the most important part of negotiating a lease is the rent payment. Well, it's not. And in fact, I'm bringing the author in today of It's Not All About the Rent. And what you're going to find out is that even if right now your lease isn't up for a while, you don't want to miss the next 30 minutes. Let me bring in today's guest, Scott Ginsburg. There was a time where we didn't know when we were going to get back to the office, and there was a time we didn't know if we were going to get back to the office. But I think we're at a time now where most are either back or heading back. What are some of the changes, particularly in the last, it's 2025 now, so in the last maybe year to 18 months, what have been some of the major shifts that from either pre-COVID or just after COVID?
Well, to kind of take a step back, during COVID, this is pertaining to office space, particularly. Biotech space ramped up, funding was crazy. Biotechnology companies were taking down spaces in droves. Warehouse also spiked because the online demand during COVID, just people buying and having delivery, contactless deliveries. So just specific to, because those other two markets are not without hurt either, but just specifically to office space related to your question, getting back to the office. For industrial, they're in the office shipping and receiving in warehouses. For biotech, not the executives, but the scientists, they're in the labs pipetting, running tests. But for office space, when we had COVID, obviously people wanted to get out of their lease. They tried to sublease, you name it. We have, if I had to take a hip shot, maybe less than half of the companies really have some type of return to office or formal hybrid policy. And what's happened then versus now is such that companies, for the most part, that signed a lease that either expire this year or in a couple years from now, almost all of them are carrying too much office space, right? The fact is, they can't really sublease it because not many people want to sublease unless it's very small, maybe 5,000 square feet, 6,000 square feet. And really what's happening is as these leases expire naturally over the course of the next, 12 to 36 months, most of the companies, over half of it, I'd say probably 75% of them, candidly, are just not going to renew or retain their footprint. We are seeing companies downsize anywhere from a third to a half of their prior space as it relates to just the office component. But the other interesting thing is everybody talked about a formal hybrid policy, a return to work policy, a return to office, all one and the same. Most companies don't have it. They just kind of let it sit by the wayside. And now it becomes an issue such that the company has employees scattered all through the US. And if they try to employ a formal, hey, a 3 day a week or a 4 day a week, whatever, then you have the people out of state that say, well, I can't come in. And then the people that are local say, wait, well, they don't get to do it, but we have. I mean, this is a repetitive cycle. And unfortunately, I think a lot of companies still struggle with that issue. So it's while some have it nailed down, most do not. The majority of companies don't.
So what's the one thing people get wrong when it comes to negotiating a lease?
I would say timing, meaning the one thing that almost everyone, clients I've worked with for 20 years, clients I've just started working with, even prospects, they always underestimate the amount of time it takes to complete a commercial real estate transaction. And the ones that want to just renew their lease oftentimes will say, my lease is up in 2 years. I'm not going to start dealing with this for 18 months. Well, by that time, you have no leverage. The landlord knows you can't move, right? So whether the simple thing to go by is read the book, follow the process, which will tell you want to start anywhere from 12 to 24 months, maybe even longer, just really depends upon your size, prior to the expiration or the date in which you need to occupy. And in the event of in the event of a real estate lease renewal, if that is the desired outcome, don't think of it as a renewal. Still go through the process and work off the timeline as if you're moving because your renewal is the most profitable for your landlord, upwards of around 40% profit margin they have in your deal compared to keeping you versus letting the space go vacant and releasing. So work off a relocation timeline, whether you want to move or renew.
And this can become an easy to, easy not to, right? It's easy to just go through the motions and renew, but it's also easy to hire someone like you to go through that for them. This is not something that they're going to look at opportunity costs and think says other stuff more important. But this is one of those things that they can have help on.
Well, there's two things. Number one, it sends a message. So if a company wants to move, what are they going to do? They're going to be on the market with somebody like me, right? If number two, if they want to stay and not relocate, not oftentimes, but sometimes companies make the mistake and they deal direct with the landlord or their broker. That sends the message they want to stay. You're the number one first pick. And then if the deal doesn't work out right, you know what they do? Then they go to the market. But guess what? They have no time to move. So the landlord knows they have them. And if you think this doesn't happen, you're sorely mistaken. It happens all the time. These are professional landlords. And while you think, oh, it's another 2 pennies or 3 pennies or another month of rent, that adds seven figures to the valuation of the asset, the landlord's real estate book, if you will.
Absolutely. Who's like really well suited for your support? Are you on the landlord side? Are you on the business owner side? Are you looking maybe a little bigger than maybe a single business? Are you looking maybe an entity or corporate? Like, give me the lay of the land here. Who's your ideal fit?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Don. I appreciate it. The we have one client, which is the business side of the transaction, if you will, the tenant. We don't service landlords, we service the tenant. And we've done this for the past 30 plus years. Myself, I've been in it for about 25 years. And the one thing that we do that is different than a traditional commercial real estate brokerage firm is that we don't represent any landlords. We've got an in-house full service suite, a vertically integrated platform that just services the tenant, the end consumer, the rent payer, if you will. We also help companies obviously own and occupy their real estate. And the reason why we started this kind of, this model 30 plus years ago is at the end of the day, we were finding out that tenants just were the underdog of the situation. They were left with poor transactions, the operating expense issue that I left with you before, I gave you the example of. They didn't know how to manage the construction. They really didn't have a true process. In the traditional firms, they started as being outsourced marketing agents for landlords. So if you look at it, you've got the stakes in the ground, all the big firms that you see, their revenue, the majority of it, 70, 80% of it is all about representing the landlord. So the tenants kind of were left to do their transaction by themselves. So over the course of the past 3 decades, we've transitioned from a real estate brokerage company that just represented tenants to a more professional services corporate advisory role, such that not only do we negotiate the transaction, we also have space planning, architectural services, legal work, construction management, and even lease audit and lease administrative services. So it's a one-stop shop.
Well, and that's huge. That's a big advantage because right now I know a lot of people who are starting a lease, getting a lease. They're in some of the retrofits part of it, and they don't quite know what to build for an office anymore. I mean, we don't just shove cubicles in and max out the square footage. I mean, some people, do I make it like Google? Do I put a gym in there? What do I put in this thing? And it sounds like your team can kind of walk through that.
Yeah, hands down. And to your other question, this kind of ties in a little bit, such that it is more important than ever for the synergies of the space to align with the corporate culture, to basically draw people in. Companies need a reason to bring people back because nobody wants to sit in the commute anymore. If it's 30 minutes, 40 minutes, that's just wasted time. So it's super imperative to get your space right, to have an inviting place to work and to thrive. Otherwise, it's going to be detrimental at the end of the day.
Yeah, and just to help me out, what size of a business would they start to consider someone like you, or what size of an office would they be looking for? Size of a transaction?
Well, you know what? I just did my smallest office lease in my entire 25-year career, which was 700 square feet. So,
I think I'm in a 700 square foot studio right now.
so you know what? Okay, to be honest, our bread and butter are kind of small to middle market companies as it relates to the volume of the transactions, but we do anything from call it under 1,000 square feet to over 1 million square feet at the end of the day. And like most businesses, you have your bread and butter. We serve kind of the middle market. But for me personally in our firm, we really strive in relationships because the old school way of representing a tenant was negotiate on behalf of the tenant, and technically, then your primary duty was to go represent your landlord as well. You put them in the building, and the tenant just, be kind of fall by the wayside. But if you think about it, if you don't do a good deal for a tenant and negotiate properly, go through the process, they're not going to use you the next time around, right? So you always hope that your customers grow, whether you're in my business or your business or who, wherever. At the end of the day, doing a good job, watching your, helping your customer grow. And it's, given the fact that it's all about relationships, at least for me and in my firm, that's why, in all honesty, we don't really have a size specific range or a head count that we kind of adhere to, because the reality is such that word of mouth spreads more business.
And absolutely, you nailed it on the head there. You make bad deals, then you're not going to have clients again when they grow or expand and I've seen so many people almost go too big too fast, and now they're just they can't float anymore. I mean, they have a
Right.
little hiccup and they're done. So I'm sure your team goes through and kind of optimizes all that. And there's got to be a lot of things in those negotiations, like you said, that the tenants were just kind of left up to their own devices on, and oops, and a
Yep.
lot of oopses learns the lessons the hard way.
We always have our a motto of keeping your clients informed, confident, and appreciated. And if you do that, it's hard to go wrong at the end of the day.
I love that, man. I love that.
Yeah.
Why are you having a business like this? Why aren't you just with one of those big firms? I mean, was there something that maybe you experienced or something you saw that made you want to be on the tenant side of this?
Well, yeah, that's an interesting question. I did work at a full service firm, as you call it, where the majority of the firm represents landlords and selling their buildings, leasing their buildings, building them, buying them, and then they have a division also that would represent tenants. So they're quote unquote full service.
Mhm.
Um, in the late 90s, this is where it all stemmed for me. In the late 90s, I had a tech company. I founded a tech company with a partner of mine. And the first office space that we leased, I employed a commercial real estate agent to represent me. Well, unknowingly, he also represented landlords. And the attention to detail and making me feel confident, informed, and appreciated, candidly, just was not there. So the deal was really difficult. I unfortunately had to pay too much money. I didn't get the term that I want, on and on. So fast forward several years later, because real estate was always an intriguing topic, even as a child. When I did want to go into the business, I sat down with a friend of mine. He was explaining to me, here are the facets of commercial real estate. You can get into doing apartments. You can get into doing landlord work. You know, brokerage. You could represent tenants. You could. When he said tenants, I'm like, huh. So it kind of rang a bell, and I dug into that, and I had a couple of interviews. And when I did interview 25 years ago with a tenant only firm like ours, that just sealed the deal for me. I just was really intriguing. The I would say the ancillary byproduct of that is a lot of my clients are in technology and biotechnology, both I have backgrounds in. So I really find it interesting to kind of follow my clients. I understand a lot of their businesses, both on the real estate side, but also on the tech side in both fronts. So I just find it super interesting.
And it's got to be one of those things. It's got to be fun to see them grow. It's got to be fun to almost see them outgrow the space and then need to move up. I mean, any recent success stories you can think of you maybe help them avoid something or you help them realize something. What's been good out there?
I'll give you a really challenge. This is one of my coolest clients. I'm a big space nerd. And one of my clients, they're called Malin Space Science Systems. All of the YouTube videos that you see of the planet Mars are filmed by a camera of my client called Malin Space Science Systems. And I've probably worked with them almost 20 years. They have a really challenging requirement such that they need one real estate classification called R&D industrial, but they need a fair amount of improvement dollars or construction costs to basically retrofit the building to build all their cameras. They all kinds of space testing, thermal vacs, you name it. Well, it took me 2 years. They've only been in the building for a year, and I've represented them more than once. And the only way we were able to accomplish this project was go through the process such that sit down with the architects and the space planners in-house, program the exact square footage that we need. We thought originally that they were going to need more space They were coming out of 33,000 square feet, going into 31. But after doing the proper programming, we got more efficient. They didn't need to rent another 10 or 20,000 square feet. Coming up with a prototypical, I should say it this way, a kind of a generic space plan of a portion of office, R&D, warehouse, however that was going to kind of fit their needs, coming up with a realistic construction budget. So once we had the size that they needed, the location that they needed, but more importantly, the retrofit or the design, the interior design of the building was so costly such that it wasn't about finding a specific building or a building. It was about finding potential buildings, but more so finding a landlord that was willing to invest a well above market capital or construction dollar amount so that we can retrofit the building. And it took 2 years to complete.
Wow.
So candidly, it was just a lot of digging, going through the process and on the front end to ensure that we knew what we were looking for and that we were able to get it. But that was a huge success story. Like I said, that took a couple years to complete.
I can't even fathom how many millions you're talking about and build out there, because my guess is like camera like that, you can't have a speck of dust, you can't have a hair. I mean, this has got to be
Right.
like the sterile environment of sterile environments, huh?
Exactly. Clean rooms, liquid nitrogen tanks, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, hands down. It was extraordinarily complicated. Now, granted, we were fighting the inflation rate where construction costs and home prices basically doubled in the last 5 years. So what started as $1 amount at day one of the project increased to a different amount towards, the time that we signed the lease and we were ready to build. So yeah, super complicated and challenging.
Yeah, and we're building an event center and a studio in Southern California, and I'll tell you what, it's kind of gut wrenching to put that amount of money into the building you don't own. So
Yeah.
having it be the right building and the right thing, and having all the pros look at it, I mean that's got to be a great support for your team. So anyone here who's maybe struggling or you're just not sure what to look for, do they need to be in Southern California to work with you, or what? How does that come together?
I'm based in San Diego. I do work all over the US,
Okay,
just given our company is national. So we've got offices in
perfect.
Colorado, Seattle, Boston, Texas, you name it.
And there's a couple ways to get started. I mean, I'm sure they can reach out to you, but and we'll talk about that in a second, what that process looks like. But you've also written a book on this topic. So
Right.
how would they kind of and give us the name of the book and give us the 30-second overview on it?
Yeah, so the book is called It's Not All About the Rent. And with the simplicity in that, it's basically a how-to guide. As it relates, you start on this end and you go to this end. If you follow that process, you're not going to fail. You know what you're getting into. And if you know what you're getting into and you don't like it, don't do the deal. But this avoids the most common pitfalls when negotiating commercial real estate leases. It is not all about the rent. In my 25 years of doing this, as I gave an example when we were kind of just chit-chatting, a customer of mine, when we first met a couple of years ago, they were bragging about how great the deal was when they moved in during COVID. However, 2 years later, they need to get out. Why? The operating expense provision in the lease, which is contained in my book, is one of the money pits, wasn't negotiated properly, and their operating expenses went from $100,000 per month to $200,000 per month. So a big hiccup, unfortunately, but it is a how-to guide, and the title candidly says it all. It's just not about the rent per square foot. There's so many idiosyncrasies negotiating these types of projects.
Yeah, it's like the one obvious one that if you're staking everything on that, you are missing the boat. There's
Right.
no doubt.
I think most people feel that maybe that is the most important because most executives who are running business, which are our clients, they've bought and sold an expensive car, an expensive home, which typically it is all about the price. But there are so many I'm going to call them chargebacks. I've never used it. I'm going to call them chargebacks. There are so many chargebacks in a lease where the landlord can say, yeah, that's great. You keep paying the rent. But hey, guess what? We're going to do all the exterior landscaping and renovation to the building, and we're going to charge you back through the operating expenses. Right? So happens all the time.
Well,
It's
now
just
it sounds like
one
my
little
country
example.
club.
Yeah, exactly.
We're
Yeah.
redoing the entire golf course and all y'all paying for it.
Right. Hands down.
Right. Let's do a little transition here because I see the car behind you, and you and I talked
Yep.
about that car behind you before we started, and kind of the reason I told you leave it up is because when people jump on a call with you, if they jump on a call with you, and we'll talk about that in a second, this is the Scott they're going to see. So what's with the car?
Um, so this is not my car. This is an award-winning 24-hour Le Mans car, Porsche factory car. It's retired now as of maybe I think a few years ago. Uh, I honestly don't know. When I was a little kid, I obviously love car racing. I don't really do it anymore. I've done it for a short period of time. But as a kid, I grew up riding motorcycles. In high school, I did drag racing. Later in life, my wife bought me, I think it was like a 2-day car, road and track thing up in Laguna Seca. I came back and told her, I'm like, I'm going to get in car racing. She says, what? I said, I'm going to get into car racing. She says, what? And I said, I am going to learn how to race cars. And she says, how? And I said, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. So, I think I kind of scratched that itch, but I've just always liked cars. I like looking at them. I like polishing them, touching, sitting them, driving them, racing them. I admire the lines. I'm what you call a gearhead. So, so it's just kind of a passion of mine. It just gets me excited. But I do like the sport of racing, which I've done very minimally, in that it is a highly focused activity. Because obviously, if you're not super focused, the inevitable happens, right? You crash. So it's a very interesting hobby. A lot of facets to it. All
Well,
types
yeah.
of car racing.
I love that. No, I'm a Detroit guy. In fact, I'm in Detroit now. We just had the Grand Prix this last weekend, and
Oh yeah.
so I'm one of those guys that like I have a hard time getting my oil changed somewhere else. Like I'm one of those. I grew up doing it, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
but one of the things I look at when you're talking about that racing thing is when and I race sailboats, right? So I mean cars, sailboats. I mean there's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a totally different speed element, but it's the focus. Like it's the one time a week when I can't think of anything else. It's
Yep.
impossible. And it's kind of a reset for me. Is it similar for you?
Hands down. When I used to do racing or go racing or even what you call test days, practice days, if you will,
Mhm.
uh, you do different what you call sessions or heats when you're on the track for 20 or 30 minutes and you come back in the pit and you relax. When I come back, I feel like I meditated because you're just so focused. I think I really like it because driving is extremely technical. Just to give you one example, which most people don't know, when you drive a civilian car on the street and you're coming up to a stoplight, you slowly ease on the brake pedal. And then when you stop, you're pressing the brake at 100%. When you're racing, you drive as fast as possible, not to the point at which you're going to turn the car, but let's say 100 feet before, and you brake the hardest possible and then you bleed off. So just these little idiosyncrasies are so technical. It's very complicated. It's not easy to do. So when you see people race cars for a living professionally, which I am nowhere near that ability, I'm okay. But when you race against one of those people, it's just mind blowing how good they are. It's
So it's
very
amazing. It's
technical. I'm
amazing
sure
watching a
that
human being do that.
right. I'm sure it's that way with sailboats as
Yep.
well.
Yep. Well, yeah. I mean, these things are incredible hobbies, but I do find it keeps me sharp too. And that was going to lead to my next question here is you got a lot on your plate. I mean, you're doing the executive leadership. This is your second book you just published, and by the way, they can get that on Amazon. That'll be in the link down here if you want to download that, or do you have it? Have it? I'm sure you got it as a paperback. They can buy it, whatever. Um,
Right.
but I mean, you're also active on many boards, and you got a wife and two kids. I mean, how do you stay organized on all this?
I went paperless years ago.
Ooh.
I think it was something I saw from Bill Gates, but I make redundant tasks, but all my tasks are either it's all technology based, candidly, and I don't try to rely on my memory only because there's so many things to do. I'll either send myself a snoozed email or I put it in a task list, like Apple reminders. But candidly, I just use technology. That's the simplicity of it.
Yeah, I love that. And then now you got a system and a process you can rely on.
Right.
versus just all stacking up on you.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes they get overly ambitious and I set too many tasks.
Mm.
Then I got to clear them out. But yeah, it's just relying on technology. That's really at the end of the day what I do.
I'm gonna put you on the spot for a minute because I just saw this before we jumped on. It was a graphic of a list of could do, should do, and must do, and the list obviously got smaller as you go. What's something on your must do list right now?
For work or
Anything,
pleasure?
either.
I must do.
Yep.
Oh, must do. Spend more time with my family.
Mm.
That's a tough one. I'm binary. I have a hard time with the work life balance. Very difficult. Because once I get going, it's hard to kind of slow the boat down.
Momentum gets
Yeah.
rolling. Do your
Yeah,
kids know what you do?
they do.
Are they into it a little bit?
They're not into it. They're in high school. No. This is a confusing, so I did work at another real estate firm before Hughes Marino years ago. I think this is maybe in '05 or '06. We had what we call Academy, which is basically the company annual event. And we had little breakout sessions. And one of the senior brokers, advisors at the time, was giving a presentation, and he basically had a slide in there referencing, does your mom and dad, your family basically know what you do? And the hilarious thing is when you just say, yeah, I'm in commercial real estate, a year down the road, you're going to get somebody that says, hey, can you help me find a restaurant? Hey, can you help me sell my house? A lot of people need 5 times reinforcing to kind of understand what it is that you do. There's just so many facets in the industry. It gets a little confusing.
Well,
So
and I'm glad to get a chance to explain it here and hear exactly how you can help. Because I told you when we started this interview, my goal was to get most people to not watch this interview.
well,
Right?
I'll tell you the one thing that people I think overlook, everybody goes, "Hey, we don't need space. We don't need we're in a lease. We have a lease expiring in a year or 2 years. We're just going to renew." The types of transactions and projects that we do are obviously finding new space, either your first home or move or an expansion, right? Renew the lease or renegotiate it early. So the two things that people kind of, I would say, misstep or really don't understand is the amount of profit that an existing landlord has renewing one of its current tenants versus letting the space go vacant and suffering the downtime and then added remodel costs. And there's a specific way about doing that. So whether I always call it renew, renegotiate, relocate. That is what I do.
And you'll help them any step of the way of that, so long as it's the right fit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a right fit for everybody, but
Right.
but hands down, I enjoy working with customers. I'm a people person, and while I like to say we can help everybody, I know that's not I know that's not reality.
Well, and let me just talk to anyone still, watching at this point. This is Scott. I mean, you just met the dude. This wasn't staged. I didn't feed you a script. I mean, we literally just having a
Nope.
conversation about what he does and how that could have an impact on you. And maybe right now you're a little confused or intimidated or maybe you're taking this too lightly and you're just, well, you know what? Throw this on legal's desk. Let me have my guy look it over. No, there's some serious opportunity here to get yourself not just the best position for your business now, but what's it going to take to grow and scale over the next few years? How are you going to position yourself to be the right fit for the right people who are either at your place and you don't want them to go or that need to be attracted into your culture? Scott, there's a lot they could be doing, should be doing. So here's my plea to you. Don't take this too lightly. And also don't stress. There's professionals here like Scott to take care of you. A couple different ways to work with them. Again, in here, wherever you're watching this video, the link to the book will be there. But Scott, how would they reach out to you directly to see if there's a fit? Are they going to reach out to someone with the company, go to a site, make a call? What's the best way?
The number one best way, I'm on LinkedIn, and it's Scott with one T, so Scot Ginsburg, Ginsburg. So I'm on LinkedIn every day. It's a great platform for me. You can also go to our company website, hughesmarino.com, and I'm on there as well. So either way, I'll be very responsive.
Yeah, and those are up on your screen right now. Now, Scott, they better do it quickly, because there won't be long until you're not responding anymore. You won't be able to. I mean, someone else is going to have to go through that. And I know you have a great team behind you. And so, when we give that, even if you're just watching this now, just reach out, make the connection on LinkedIn. Scott, you got a pretty decent following there. I mean, I've seen some of your posts and some of what you're into. This is way more than just, like you said, than just the rent. There's a lot of pieces here in terms of the right position to put you and your business in a spot for wealth, for health, for just your own sanity, and like you said, ultimately spending time with the family, building a legacy, and having a little fun while you do it.
Can I make one comment?
Of course, I'm going to give you the last word.
There's going to be people out there that are going to say, my lease expires in 4 years. I don't even want to open it. I don't want to look at it. It's not a car lease. Don't do that. If it's not me, go to your other real estate advisor, give them your lease and say, hey, do a quick audit for me. Am I at market? Am I below? Am I above market? How's the operating expenses? And the reason why is commercial real estate is going through a massive transformation now. Industrial space and biotech space, as I didn't talk to before, industrial space, we are at a higher availability rate than before COVID. So industrial space is in trouble. Biotechnology space, laboratory space is in trouble. There is going to be a lot of shakeup, which is never talked about in the media. And so the reason why I say take your lease, give it to me, give it to your advisor that you worked with before, and have them do a gut check. And the reason why is the renegotiating part. So I work on relocating, renewing clients' leases, and renegotiating them early. And the reason why I say that is because it is extremely plausible that you can renegotiate your lease 2-3 years in advance of the expiration and obtain better terms.
I love that, Scott. Great way to wrap this up. Appreciate you being here. Again, you saw it on the screen. You'll see it in the description of wherever you find this video or any of the shorts that you're watching from this. Reach out. Scott, that's kind of a risk-free thing. I don't know why they wouldn't. And you just gave them, that was probably in the back of some people's heads is, well, I don't need to worry about this. I can kick this down the road a year, 2 or 4. Don't make that mistake. Reach out now. Scott, appreciate you being here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.